Hello, everyone. Welcome to this special recap of last week's KubeCon in Salt Lake City. I even put the shirt on for the occasion. So that's the live stream. The live stream is brought to you by the CNCF, the foundation that brought us KubeCon, and also obviously Kubernetes and many other cloud native projects that we all know and love and going to talk about today. I'm your host, Dotan Horovits, and I'm a CNCF Ambassador and also the host of OpenObservability Talks podcast that proudly collaborates on this live stream. So do check it out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And my guests today are fellow CNCF ambassadors, KubeCon speakers, and cloud native whisperers. So we have Viktor Farcic, we have Max Körbächer. I'll let them introduce themselves in 1 second. But I want to say that we are here to give you the insights from the KubeCon show floor and the way only CNCF ambassadors could. So we were supposed to actually also be having Abby Bankser with us, but unfortunately she just called in sick. So I guess the snowy Salt Lake City took its toll. So sending her speedy recovery. Abby, missing you here. And last housekeeping item for those joining us on the live stream, you're welcome to chime in on the live chat with your questions and insights. We'll try to take in as many as we can. And just remember, we adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct. So please be kind and respectful to each other on the chat. And with that, let's have an introduction round. Viktor, do you want to go first?
I don't know. My name is Viktor. That's it.
Come on, say a few more words about
crossplane guy. That's me. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Short
you go in.
I can complete Viktor's introduction. I think that I did it once for one of the KCDs. I'm Max. I'm also one of the CNCF ambassadors, and hosting the KCD in Munich or the Cloud Native Summit in future. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, amazing. And as I said, all this panel is CNCF ambassadors. You can see here also I put the link for the folks who want to know more about the CNCF ambassadors, cncf.io/people/ambassadors. And let's talk a bit about KubeCon. So I want to start by saying this is actually quite astonishing that this year it was the largest KubeCon North America after COVID. So we're talking about over 9,000 attendees, and even maybe more astonishing, about 50% of attendees are first-timers. So really amazing. And I guess let's start with the interesting bits. What were the major trends this KubeCon? So let's do a round. Each one will give his top one, and then we'll take it from there. Max, you go ahead first.
Well, I would say the pretty obvious big, can we call it llama in the room, not the elephant in the room, was all about Gen AI. So I think this was like more or less omnipresent. There were a lot of talks, also like at a similar time, right? But you also saw it on the pre-events, focusing data on Kubernetes, which was obviously data engineering, big data heavy for doing the groundwork for all the machine learning, LLM topics. And then you had also had one focusing more on the machine learning aspect. So I think this was, the pretty heavy child. I heard somewhere that there were either 26 talks from NVIDIA, maybe I'm lying here, or 26 talks at all, which sounds too less for me. So I think 26 talks from only NVIDIA is already like the big number. But need to say also there's all about their open source contributions and tools which they put out there. So I think this was the pretty interesting part for many of the topics. The other thing which I more recognized in the hallways was about the immense amount of internal developer platforms which were there and presenting on the booths and their products and how they want to help in the development process and the platform engineering. And I think we saw it partially in the talks. For obvious reason, we have a backstage con before we had a platform engineering day, which wraps this up. But we can see this also in the products which were present.
Yeah, actually, I think that you, Victor, gave a panel talk also with Abby that was supposed to be here with us, which was also about platform engineering, surprisingly enough. So, you want to say a word about that?
Yeah. So I will give a very outrageous opinion about or answer to your question. That is going to probably result in you kicking me out of this, but I don't think that we are anymore in a phase where revolutionary new things are coming every KubeCon and what's not, right? Exciting things are not anymore happening, and that's a good thing, right? Because we are not before, if you go back KubeCon 5 years ago, something like that, it was so young that every year you would see 57 new projects and you would ask, what is this thing? I don't know. I never even thought that this is possible, right? Or this is something completely different and so on and so forth. Now we are kind of, okay, we now more or less know what it is. Now we're trying to make it work somehow, right? Instead of coming up with completely new ideas. And platform engineering is one example of such things, right? It's not that we get some new ways to do things in platform engineering, but now we are in a phase of let's try to figure out how we assemble a platform from the tools that we already have for years, right? Yeah. So it's consolidation phase, and that means that we are mature. We are not kids anymore, right?
True.
I think I think it really depends. The CNCF cloud native stack has grown. So in some layers, like you don't look at Kubernetes, you don't see like revolutions in the kernel level, let's say, but you definitely see new layers. I think the AI, the amount of initiatives and projects springing up around AI is pretty amazing. This level is still the innovation side of the curve. And growing up the stack also, for example, around platform engineering and things like that, this is still young. So I think it depends, and now you go to an open course that just moved into incubation. So you see FinOps and you see other pieces. So it really depends on which part of the stack that is now called cloud native that maybe now is much broader than what we originally planned on.
There is definitely, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely not saying that we are not working on improving and new features and what's not. I'm just saying it's not revolutionary anymore. And that's a good thing, right? That means that we are mature, right? Yeah. All those layers that you mentioned, I completely agree. The interesting things are happening there, but not anymore kind of I never heard about this, right?
Yeah, that's true. And I think, remember, that's really today, this KubeCon, we celebrated a decade to Kubernetes. We call it in CNCF the Kubernetes. And so we had this and 9 years for the CNCF itself, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. It's really, as you say, in this stage, it's already maturing. And actually, it's interesting. What's the value that KubeCon plays in the cloud native landscape for you? Why would you recommend people to attend it? Victor, you go first.
It's a place where everybody within cloud native area is, right? Kind of all the people you want to meet, all the talks you want to hear, all the discussions you want to have, right? There is no bigger conference anywhere within that area, right? Of course, it's not the biggest conference in the world. There is reInvent or what's not, but this is the place where everybody is, right? And basically, it's a gathering point.
No. I think it's great that it's a mix of practically a little bit of everything, right? You can go to a very cloud provider focused topic, conferences for some very specific solutions. But on KubeCon, you can find almost everything. How to do multi-cloud with Kubernetes in this way. How do we do network observability? Yes, it works with Kubernetes, but it also works with any kind of cloud provider and infrastructure. Machine learning is completely overtaking that space for some reason. But in a few talks, they were referencing to some research on it, that Kubernetes is almost the preferred platform to do machine learning and Gen AI because it's in some ways super simple to utilize it. And on the other side, you have a lot of development going on that's help you to really take the advantage of the cron ecosystem. Is it about queuing? Is it about the management of resources and so on and so forth? So there's a lot of stuff going on. And I think that makes it so fantastic that you have really one spot where you can find a a little bit of everything falling into the same place.
Yeah, makes
And
sense.
also for all ages, for all experiences, right? It's like a big entertainment park. You have those big roller coasters for people who are already riding for many years. You have baby ones as well. Kind of basically for all levels. And you said it yourself, Dotan. There is what did you say? Like 50% of newbies, right? Not necessarily to KubeCon, to Kubernetes, but to KubeCon as well. At least.
No, yeah, 50%. That's astonishing. And you know, look at
So
the
where's
figure. We're talking about like 200, over 200. I think 208 projects. You know, graduated, incubating, sandbox. I think we're talking about 250 something thousand contributors across nearly 200 countries. So it's really astonishing the extent of this community. And obviously not everyone can attend KubeCon North America, but still you get a glimpse of the virtual community we get to see every time over GitHub repos and the chats and the Slack of since suddenly these become real faces that you meet there from all around the world, and it's really an astonishing experience for me. And actually, so Max, you mentioned about the AI. I'm curious, nothing revolutionary, but what caught your eye, Victor, in terms of today, this KubeCon and its major themes, trends, or whatnot?
I feel that excluding AI, because everybody, AI is the hype in or outside KubeCon, right? Excluding that one, I think it's what you mentioned before. I think it's platform engineering, some form or another. And that goes well into what I said before, right? I think that now many companies are very comfortable with Kubernetes and the ecosystem, but on a relatively small scale, right? There are 10 people, 15, 20 people in a company that already spent years with Kubernetes. They're very comfortable with it and so on and so forth. And now we are entering into that next phase. Okay, how can we enable everybody else in this organization to be able to do things like deploy applications, create databases, do whatever they need to do without spending as much time as we did on Kubernetes, right? So it's, to me, platform engineering is a sign of both expanding Kubernetes, but also making it invisible. And I think that our ultimate goal at the end of the day is to make it invisible. You don't even know that there is Kubernetes over there, right? Why would you? Like, that's a similar phase where we got with hyperscalers some time ago. Oh, you need a VM. You don't ever even need to know that there is such a thing as hyperscaler, right? That's where we're going with Kubernetes, and that's probably best seen through platform engineering efforts, one way or another, right?
Yeah, actually, it's I had the Kelsey Hightower on my podcast on OpenObservability Talks to celebrate the 10th anniversary for Kubernetes, and one of the things that I recall very clearly from the chat is exactly this point about. And then I asked him, like, where do you see it heading next? What's the next decade for you? And I think the interesting part was actually a success would be when we start not seeing Kubernetes so prevalent in everyone's lives. Obviously, you'll always have, like, you have kernel folks for Linux, okay? But the equivalence for Linux is great in this regard. But in some regards, it will start becoming the engine underneath the hood. You'll have the folks specializing on that, but the rest of us, we just have that. And that's one thing. And another thing that I took out of this conversation is Kubernetes not just as a platform, but also as a specification, an open specification, a set of APIs. So what I expect to see, as we've seen in other things, is that in a way you'll have like Kubernetes compatible capabilities, as long as the API is the agreed upon API and obviously the functionality and the expected behavior keeps opening up a whole suite of innovation that you can do on top of that. So I think one of the power of maybe the CNCF as a foundation, and generally in open source, I see it in other places like OpenTelemetry and other projects, is actually the open specification and the ability to agree on the language and then innovate on the implementation of that.
In former time, you would have said standardization, but it's sometimes a bad word, right?
Yeah, so standardization, people immediately think about the IEEE and the IETF and things like that. So CNCF is not a standardization body by definition. We did try some things to take open specifications from the CNCF and move it into a formal IETF specs or things like that. But I think as long as it's a de facto, look at Prometheus. Prometheus is not an official standard, but it's a de facto standard. Okay, that's how I emit metrics and report about my system. So, it's that's enough for us folks to agree upon a common language, and that's it. Actually, I was recently involved in an initiative to standardize on CI/CD observability, to actually take open telemetry specification or semantic conventions and move it up the stack, or if you wish, or earlier in the software development lifecycle, and actually make the semantic conventions for CI/CD events, the release pipeline, and how we can actually observe release pipelines in a standard unified manner, that I don't need to lock into a Jenkins specific way of reporting or a GitOps GitHub actions or whatnot. And that's again the power. You see people gathering around. I got like the blog post came the week before KubeCon with all the announcements. Still, it picked because you see that people react positively. People realize that this is a pain. The fact that we don't have this common language to speak and to report what goes on in our release pipelines is a pain. And the fact that we have now a SIG, a special interest group, dealing with that is a relief to so many. So it's funny to see the reactions to this initiative. So I really, the open specifications, the semantic conventions is really a powerful thing there. Did you get that in other areas of the cloud native stack in KubeCon or around KubeCon?
What do you exactly mean? The
initiatives around the open specifications and the likes, beyond just a specific project as a tool, but more as a specification.
Those are tough, right? Very few tend to actually end up being widely accepted, right? So it really depends on how much you manage to convince the vendors to jump on board of it, right? Hotel is probably the best example of a specification that was very, very, very successful, right? But it requires a lot of work, right? And a lot of support from companies in general, right? So there are always, in KubeCon this year as well, there was a lot of talk about specifications, right? But not many of them end up going somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, from time to time you see Spiffy and Spire popping up, but they don't have this large traction yet, I would say.
Actually, I feel that they do. It's just that Spiffy and Spire are so specific that they're interesting. They're not very user focused, right? You as a user, you never see Spiffy and Spire, right? Kind of almost nobody works on that level. But then if you take a look at tools in that area that are on higher level of abstractions, then Spiffy and Spire is usually there somewhere.
It's a good point, because you need to look at the segment it according to the target audience, and this is a classic case. It's a really specific subset of the audience that's relevant for that. Let's look, by the way, we talked about like the lower level things. I think one of the interesting things that came around the KubeCon in the announcements was Flatcar joining the CNCF. So now we really have, if you will, an operating system, a derivative of CoreOS. That's a lightweight Linux operating system specifically tailored for hosting container workloads. What do you think about that joining the CNCF stack?
That's similar to what I said before about Spiffy and Spire. Those initiatives are very, very important, but most of the users really don't care anymore, right? Significant number. Like I run a lot of GKEs and EKSs and AKS clusters, and I don't even know what is the operating system, right? It's so low level, right? As the end user. So it's very good to see Flatcar joining, but I don't think it will get it matters to many people anymore, right? Because Kubernetes is that abstraction on top of operating systems.
Yeah, but I think it is a very valid point and very a very good move to have it in the foundation.
Oh yeah.
It was always somewhere hanging around. It was like, who's taking care now? Which organization is looking after it? Is it going to die? Is it going to be replaced by something else? The adoption is big, but then somehow also not big enough. And so I think this gives a very, very good direction for especially the platform engineers who might be looking for the right golden image they can use and pull out the pocket all the time. So I think that's the right signal. And I think that's overall like, I mean, Viktor stated already, the community has got mature. This is like the right signal towards the end user also, like, hey, we're not anymore this, maybe still somewhere, but not continuously anymore, this crazy amount of tens of thousands contributors every day releasing something new and moving left and right and screwing versions and whatever. But we really give like more a strong, solid foundation where you can really build on something that creates in the end value, right? We move away from we engineer Kubernetes to we do platform engineering. Why we can now really focus on bringing the value to developers, not only developers. When we talk about IDPs, I do not like this perspective. It's only for developers. It should also make the life for operational people more easier. For product,
You're saying that operational people are not developers? They don't develop?
They develop infrastructure.
They're developers.
I mean, it's a deep discussion. I know some people, they just know bash scripts.
Still, it's code.
YAML developers.
If you produce something that is interpreted by a machine, you're a developer.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And so when you write something in Word files and save it as a PDF.
Okay, that's where I draw the line. Okay, then you're out of my group.
Yeah, and by the way, I think you can talk about more actors there. You can talk about the FinOps team, SecOps team that gets served by the platform. So I think it's definitely not just the developer, the hands-on developer, but other functions there.
That's a hill I'm willing to die on. If you don't write at least some scripts or something, you don't belong with us. I don't care whether you call yourself security or operations or DevOps or something like that. You have to know at least how to write a script. Come on.
I see we need a new role for you on the KubeCon, the KubeCon police.
Exactly. I can scan the badge. Kind of.
Yeah.
How many scripts did you write this quarter? No scripts out.
Yeah. By the way, so tell us about your panel with Abby and a few other folks about platform engineering. Come on, what are the highlights there?
Oh, the panel, the last one. Okay, yes, it was great. It's discussion. We organized it in a way that there were a few questions ad hoc, not that much prepared, but then taking questions from the audience, fighting each other. I like that. It was awesome. Audience was very, very engaged. I really like those.
Sounds good.
By the way, nobody mentioned that KubeCon started today before KubeCon started with rejects.
Okay, fair enough. So you've been at rejects. Tell us a bit about the highlights from the underground there.
Underground, yes. No, it was awesome. Rejects is my favorite part always.
And underground.
It's when you go to a party when you're younger than I am, but before the party you stop by a bar or a restaurant or something like that to ease you into the madness, right? To me that's rejects, right? It's instead of making 3 steps jump directly into KubeCon, you go to rejects. It was awesome, especially since a lot of familiar faces were there.
Did you also give a talk there, or just enjoying and lazing out?
The rejects, no. I was emceeing one day though.
Gotcha. Max, were you there?
I had to skip it. I was flying
Shame
over at this time where
shame.
While Viktor was enjoying it, I was fighting with jet lag.
That's why they do it over the weekend, so people can actually adjust during that thing. I want to say about you, Max. You attended the so for those who don't know, before KubeCon, there are co-located events, colos specialized. We mentioned a bit before about like backstage con, platform con, and so on. And Max, you mentioned on the chit chat before we went live about you attending WASM, right? So
Yep.
I'm curious, and just as a background, for those who don't know, one of the major announcements was that WASMCloud matured into incubation, so moved from sandbox into incubation, and was that's a WebAssembly project. They actually showed very impressive figures. I think they talked about like 100 plus regular contributors with 70 something unique companies. So it was pretty impressive. Big names there on the organizations like Adobe and Orange and members of the TM Forum and whatnot, Akamai. So that's one of the big announcements that came out of KubeCon in general and the WASM space in particular. But just laying the ground for you to tell us a bit of the highlights there from WASMCon.
Yeah, WASMCon was fantastic. I mean, it was as usual was a very good mixture of having some nice little milestones which the community achieve, succeeding in being more and more adopted, finding more and more adoption, and not just having people talking about it, but really having also a growing end user community. Where also were a few talks given. One especially I have in mind from Siemens, which was very interesting to see how they use it, especially then into the close corner to embedded development, right? So getting there also slowly into this direction that it becomes also helpful in cases where embedded is maybe good, but also it would be nice from time to time to have a very easier, faster way to maybe update and replace software. So this was very fantastic to see. Obviously, the mood was great because of wasmCloud was going to be graduated. So we can definitely feel this sparkling in the air over the WASMCon. And yeah, I mean, all around this was the space was nice because it has enough room for also networking, talking with people, get in touch, exchange some thoughts and ideas. So I really appreciate the WASMCon also that it's really like part of the KubeCon and delivers so much overview on the one hand side, but also deep knowledge on the other. It has a good balance, I would say. If you're also new to a topic, it's a good reason to come by.
Victor, what do you have to say about all the buzz around WASM? Everyone's talking WASM and WebAssembly, and that's the future of containers. Come on.
I wouldn't. I'm not sure at this point that WASM is a future of containers in terms of replacing containers. I think that WASM is finding its own in its own place rather than, it's not like we're going to move all our containers to WASM. I don't think that that's the case. Of course, there is some overlap, but Edge is a good example that Max just mentioned, right? And there are quite a few other use cases for WASM, right? But I don't see it as future of containers, rather as something that runs in parallel, right, with containers depending on the use case.
I'm also wondering, one of the real strength of the cloud native stack is the ecosystem that was built around Kubernetes. So you have Kubernetes, obviously a very powerful system, but then you have so many tools for security, for observability, for FinOps, we mentioned so many. When we switch over to WASM, we're not there yet. So let's say even when WASM can deliver on specific use cases, the question, if you zoom out to production system, you think of putting it in production, and then you're looking for the regular tool suite that you need to manage, operate, observe, and whatnot. How do you find the current stack around WASM in the current stage?
Me or
Well,
Max? Max, probably.
Well, I mean, it very much depends on which direction and which ways you're going, right? So you have the WASM world, which can completely exist outside of Kubernetes, which provides all basic functionalities to make your applications run. And looking into wasmCloud, they run smooth, they run perfect. If they crash somewhere, they have fallback network connection. So everything, more or less everything what you look into if you have a self-written app. If you're looking into the way to run WASM on Kubernetes, I mean, it can practically leverage the whole ecosystem of Kubernetes. There's no limit in it. And I think if you look into one or the other option, you're good to go. If you want something else, which is not really in the Kubernetes world, but maybe not really also in the wasmCloud direction, or feels well in the wasmCloud direction, then it might get difficult, I would say.
Yeah, the way I see it is that, there are cases where Kubernetes is simply not a good option, right? And that's normal, and that's where WASM shines. And there is also WASM in Kubernetes, meaning that because WASM in a way is similar to containers, right? WASM itself is not replacing the whole ecosystem. We still need networking and storage and stuff like that. A lot of things that were solved in Kubernetes, and it made me really happy a while ago when I saw the attempts actually to simply have WASM basically as a replacement for containers. Kind of, hey, you can theoretically, at least, you can run your application in Kubernetes as WASM or as containers or potentially something else tomorrow, right? And it also shows that Kubernetes is, many people associate Kubernetes with containers and think that because that's the first thing that we started doing. Hey, Kubernetes is a thing where you run containers, right? And Kubernetes is so much more. And WASM is definitely a part of that so much more.
Cool. I want to say also a word about the community, because I think we talked about how many people attended and how many newbies, but I think also one of the things that first of all, I keep on getting asked what does it mean when you're in CNCF Ambassador, and what do they do and things like that. So one of the things that caught my eye, and every time I'm trying to explain that, but the beauty is that today on this KubeCon, when they announced the community awards, I was very proud to see actually fellow CNCF ambassadors there shining. I can name James Perrin, William Rizzo, Nancy Chawan, and tell me if I forgot anyone, but really amongst others that are community members in the CNCF that are taking amazing role, each one with his own. So I think, first of all, kudos to our friends who won and everyone who won the community awards. And I want to hear you. We're all a forum now of CNCF ambassadors. What is being an ambassador for you? Max, if you want to take it first.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think in the one way it's somehow not only in the KubeCon, but on almost every event where you go, it's a little bit like feeling the little nerdy represent of the Kubernetes Cloud native ecosystem in some way. Because whenever you end up in a chat about something, into my head at least, there comes up like 20 open source solutions and 20 things how we have done this already and how we could run it in Kubernetes and so on. So you're like, maybe a little bit too much biased also, but you always have this thoughts in this direction and deliver it also to other communities wherever you are, because they're also usually very much overlapping. So being the spokesperson, I think is one of the key element of it, and it doesn't matter in which way you are also doing it. It's can be also like in the own organized events and meetups, but also if you do blog posts, videos, and so on. There's always this very interesting way of exchanging on different technologies and also between different levels and knowledge and experience which you can bring in.
Yeah. Victor, you've joined recently, but you've been advocating for the cloud native stack for quite some time. So tell us a bit your perspective.
I don't know. Free breakfast at KubeCon.
The jacket, don't forget the CNCF ambassador jacket.
Exactly, and the jacket, exactly, which is very important because I feel like a fool if I buy winter clothes living in Barcelona. So it's very good, yeah.
So what would you know, as a new CNCF ambassador, what would you envision for being an ambassador? Like, if I ask you the same question a year from now, what would be the main milestone that you'd like to say, hey, these are the things that made it meaningful?
Not sure. Haven't thought about it, to be honest. I don't know. More breakfasts? No. Okay. So here's what would make very meaningful for me. Ambassador dinner, please, instead of breakfast. I cannot wake up early. I missed every single breakfast we had so far.
Okay, fair enough. Let's talk a bit about the upcoming event. So we just had the KubeCon North America, KubeCon Cloud Native Con, North America in Salt Lake City. But for those who don't know, actually, in less than a month, next month in December, we're going to have KubeCon India on December 11th and 12th in Delhi. And actually, that's going to be the first ever KubeCon in India. That's astonishing. And check out the schedule and register. Does anyone of you planning on attending?
No,
not me.
No time in the end of the year for that.
Yeah, the date is tricky there, near mid-December. But the thing for me is I'm really glad that KubeCon is expanding to reach additional communities of ours and make it more inclusive and accessible. I know both of you are in Europe where it's well covered, but I'm based in Tel Aviv, away from Europe and North America, and there are many others like me throughout the Middle East, Asia, Africa, and actually we'll see more of that expansion next year in 2025 with the addition of KubeCon Japan, first time in Japan. Mm-hmm. So that's really exciting. And yeah, just to mention, looking into 2025, we're going to have KubeCon Europe in April, beginning of April in London. And the CFP is open, folks, just until, I think, less than a week, right? And November 24th, if I'm not mistaken. So if you have some interesting talk that you want to submit for KubeCon Europe, April in London, now's the time. Go ahead and submit your call for a proposal. I'm sure that both of you already have, but if any one of our listeners and folks back home, do check it out. And then we have KubeCon China in June in Hong Kong, and then, as I said, KubeCon Japan for the first time in June as well, if I'm not mistaken, in Tokyo.
That's basically this year we had Cube Day Japan, which is now being changed to KubeCon, right? Because
and also there's a cloud native community Japan that has a whole ecosystem with the translation because of the language also, and there's a very, very nice ecosystem that was built last year, 2023, that is now maturing up into a full-fledged KubeCon. So really impressive work by that community to provide the local needs because of language barriers and things like that, but on the other hand, make it part of the global community. So really nice. And then in August we'll have again KubeCon India in Hyderabad, and then KubeCon North America next year will be in Atlanta. That's for 2025, and then 2026 in Amsterdam and LA. That's what I know so far. But anyway, check out the listings on the CNCF.io/events. Definitely worthwhile checking. Which ones of you are you planning on attending?
KubeCon EU for sure, and man, I would love to go to Japan, but I'm not good enough for giving a talk in Japanese. I'm afraid I say something completely wrong.
If you try in Japanese, but I was there this year. You can do the talk in English. No worries about that.
That's what I
actually
think.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that KubeCon China and Japan will be like a few days apart or something like that. So you can do both.
I think it's June 10th and 11th it's China, and then 16th, 17th in Japan. So it's really, if you're not in the neighborhood and you're already coming over, then stick around. Yeah. So KubeCon Europe. Anything else on your plans?
In my case, KCDs always. I mean, I don't have anything scheduled, but probably 3, 4, 5 KCDs for sure.
And that's actually a very good point. I don't know if all our listeners know, but KCDs, the Kubernetes Community Days, even if you can't get to the big KubeCons because of price, because of distance or whatnot, the local KCDs, Kubernetes Community Days, run by the local communities themselves. Max here runs KCD Munich. I run KCD Tel Aviv, Israel, and there are many more around the world. So really, reach out, check out in your vicinity. That's a great way to get the in-person, even if you can't attend the big KubeCons. Max, do you want to give us a bit of your, as an organizer, your perspective on the KCDs?
Well, I mean, the KCDs itself, as you said already, is because of the regionality, sometimes easier to approach. It's also not very expensive. Often the ticket price really just covers the food and the drink if you sum it up for such event dates. So pricing is very, very nice. But the very cool thing is, like, in comparison to a large event like KubeCon, very often you will, if you would like to talk to someone and give a talk, the people somehow vanish between the 9,000 people. The KCDs are everything between 50 and maybe 1,000 people. So it's a very, very great chance to meet all kind of speakers, from first-time speakers, but also to very experienced speakers. You can approach Viktor and get into his, I don't know, thought process of creating YouTube videos and whatsoever, and get his life experience of him. But this makes the KCDs a perfect place because you really have people being approachable, whoever it is. It's not just like people just run away in the end. They stay all day long there. You have evening events usually. You can drink with your favorite speaker a beer and keep talking about your thoughts and whatever they've shown.
It's more approachable, more intimate. I always feel when I go to KCD, it's more like a family of people who do not necessarily know each other, but everybody gathers around at the end, and it's more intimate.
You need to remember also that the KCDs are really organized by the local community itself. So you go to KubeCon, you have like an events team, partnership teams, and whatnot. They come with their army of specialists that come and set it up. And also with Cube Days, I know it's confusing. Kubernetes Community Days, Cube Day, not the best naming. But Cube Days, although they come to more localized regions, they're still run by the central CNCF team. KCDs are really grassroots work by the local community, typically like CNCF local chapter members, that organizers that do that, but or maybe some others that take part. But so and it feels like that because there's usually an organic community in that place that was around CNCF, around the cloud native, around Kubernetes, whatnot. And then at some point when they mature up, they have already a one-day full-fledged event. That's what happened with us in Tel Aviv. We ran like around 30 meetups with the CNCF local chapter, and then it reached the critical mass and said, hey, now it merits a full day event. And it was like fully booked, and it was amazing. One day event. I know Max already has in Munich a 2-day event, and the larger ones, but it's pretty cool to see 400, I think, was the capacity of the venue, full venue, and seeing the people so excited to get together. And I think that's the beauty, and that's the special charm that you don't, that is very different than the KubeCon experience.
Yeah, we have always the problem that you guys submit too many talks, That's why we have to do 2 days. No idea how to fit this all into the small places we have.
That's true. Let's talk a bit more about some updates there. Max, you're in the used to be for quite some time on the TAG sustainability, and I'm curious. TAG, for those who don't know, a technical advisory group. This one specifically about sustainability. Give us the gist about the TAG and what's the latest there in the happening.
Sure. So Technical Advisory Group for Environmental Sustainability initially was thought more like a work group to land and expand, find out what it could be, what it should be. I think we have grown in the last almost 3 years drastically. I think in the Slack channel itself for the tech, you have 600-700 people being engaged. We just had a few months ago the Cloud Native Sustainability Week, which is in the end within 1 week globally everywhere here and there a meetup. organized and run by local members of the community, which is always great to see, and also gives a very nice impression about the size of the community and where everyone comes from. It's like when you sit in meetings together, you maybe can guess by name where someone is located. But when you organize this Cloud Native Sustainability Week and you see a lot of interest in it, and then you have your little global world map and see where all in the world you're going to have meetups, that's very fantastic from the direction. Else, what is the tag doing? Well, we have a lot of stuff going on, from a little glossary, which just helps someone who get new to the topic to understand some of the wording, because it's always the most easiest thing to. We have a kind of guide or guidance towards environmental sustainability to understand what and how you can do in Kubernetes to make your workload being more optimized, and why it's a very good platform to do so. And yeah, we have a few other ideas around that. For example, to provide an approach for measuring open source software power footprint, if you want to call it like that, so that you have something where you can compare between release to release and see whatever you develop new as a feature has a positive or negative impact on the power footage, for example. And yeah, there's tons of other stuff going on. We continuously also searching for new other possibilities. They have also very nice work group behavior between not only the CNCF but also the Green Software Foundation and other more local sustainability or IT sustainability groups who have also very heavy exchange with each other. And yeah, keep this whole thing being vibrant and updated from time to time.
Nice. So, Viktor, are you a member of any interesting working group that you want to share with us?
No, unfortunately, no. For a few years now, I'm not in groups, to be honest. Mostly, time demanding, engage, all that stuff. I was very active before, but no. When I do have time, I tend to join the platform engineering group.
And what's the latest there? I know that there is the platform engineering group had the really good white papers that came out too, and now in the works about the platform as a product, right? Do you want to give us a bit about the work now?
Yeah, I also starting now some kind of certification. The work on that will start very soon, so it's a pretty active group. Nice. But as I said, I'm not deeply involved in any, so I cannot give you as much details as Max can.
No, it's good. And let's talk a bit about projects reaching graduation. I think this KubeCon saw a few of these. So we had maybe one that we should start with is Dapr reaching graduation. Woo!
Yeah.
So that's really, really exciting to see. The distributed application runtime project. That amazing figures. I looked at it, like 3,700 individual contributors from more than 400 organizations. Tens of thousands of organizations use it. Big names, HDFC Bank and Zeiss and Grafana Labs and whatnot. And really a big congrats to the Microsoft Azure team who originally founded it and started it and are still lead maintainers, to Diagrid, who also leads it very actively, and all the other maintainers. So really a great milestone. Also paste the link here for the folks on the live stream. Obviously, all the links will also be on the recording, so don't worry about that. What do you think about that? Who wants to go first?
Dapr is awesome. It made me very happy when I saw that it graduated now. Yeah. We even organized a big graduation party with Dapr folks in Salt Lake City. Yeah, that's
cool. No, it's really nice. We had a few streams, by the way, here on the CNCF online programs about Dapr. It's pretty exciting to see. Max, were you there part of the celebration?
No, unfortunately not. But Dapr is still fantastic. Also one of the frameworks which works smoothly together with WebAssembly, by the way,
Yeah.
because we were before talking with about this topic. There's also a training in the Linux Foundation about WebAssembly with Dapr. So something you could check out. Good source to go, and great to see that Dapr is incubated now created.
Yeah, that's cool. Another one, by the way, it's maybe a more tactical but very, very important critical component is the cert-manager that reached graduation. And that's amazing because maybe we don't realize, we take it for granted, but like 86% of new production clusters are created with cert-manager deployed as standard practice to manage the, all the issuance, renewal of TLS, MTLS certificates and all of that. So I know it looks like yet another box there inside under the hood, but it's now a graduated project, which is, again, very, very important for the stack.
It's a de facto standard, isn't it?
You guys were probably in that situation. Remember, like 10 years ago, when you would spend half of your day just setting up certificates all around. It's so wonderful that I don't even need to think about those things anymore.
You mean you're happy that it's not anymore the reason number one why clusters fail is not because the certificate expired, because now it's a DNS or something?
Yeah, you need to change the problem at least once a decade.
Yeah. Now certificate rotation is, you need to be a hobbyist to deal with certificate rotation. Otherwise, it's like, it's taken care of for you, man. It's not for you. Yeah. I wanted actually something very interesting that I'm not sure about from the end user group. We have within the CNCF the technical advisory board, for those who don't know, like organizations that give the perspective of the end users. And interesting things came out of that. And I think now we launched within the CNCF an architecture page. It's actually called, you find it architecture.cncf.io, that has like cloud native reference architectures shared by up till now large organizations, but it's pretty new. Like I think there are only 2 reference architectures as of yet, but I really like the fact that now we can start sharing not just the projects themselves and some best practices, but actually sort of architectural blueprints that you don't need to copy paste as is. You need to adapt it obviously to your own needs, but it is good as a platform. So I really liked seeing that. As I said, it's a collaborative effort within the end user technical advisory board. There was a dedicated the working group, the reference architecture one. So kudos to everyone involved there. And I think currently you will find there, we talked about platform engineering. So there's the scaling through platform engineering that came from Allianz Direct. And the other use case is scaling Adobe's service delivery foundation with cell-based architecture. So really real-life architectures used in large-scale production settings, and all the benefits and the trade-offs and all of that. So really check it out. I'll paste the URL here. But has any one of you gone around to checking out this initiative or the working group?
Yeah, I had already a look. We were happy that we could host on our last year or this year KCD also the tab, and gave them a discussion round and also a follow-up session. And it's great to see that they brought up this topic. And maybe here also call to action. It's for every end user. You can just go to, I believe it's in the GitHub repository, and submit your own reference architecture. I know the folks are always looking for more input, also from smaller examples. I just saw recently somewhere a comment like, hey, you have 10 to 20 people who knows Kubernetes. I'm jealous about it. I have maybe 1.5 to 2.5. Maybe you have some good experience how to run still clusters with just less than a handful of people.
Yeah, and it's a good point, by the way. If you go to that same subdomain, the architecture.cncf.io, you'll have at the tab there on how to submit your own. So you don't even need to go search for the GitHub repo. Just check it out on the architecture.cncf.io. You have the recent ones, which is the 2 that I mentioned, and then you have the how to submit your own. And yeah, go ahead. Whether you're large or small, if you have something interesting to share, something that worked well, something that you invested your architectural talents in setting it up and making things work together, I think it's worthwhile sharing, and I really hope that this will become like a platform for the community to share these sorts of blueprints. So yeah, go ahead and check it out. I think it's a good addition and a good output from the tab from Technical Advisory Board. What else? Let's say a word about observability. I know that you, Victor, had the whole session or panel about your usual tandem about observability. My passion is observability. So we had a few major announcements on this. We had a major release of Jaeger V2 came out.
That was really impressive.
V3. Sorry, what is it?
No, I was saying, yeah, it was so good to see it move to the next major version. Yes.
Yeah. And actually, on the podcast on OpenObservability Talks, I had Yuri Shkuro, the creator of Jaeger and the core maintainer, having a dedicated episode just about what's the goodies that come, why does it come, and then I had with Julius Volz about Prometheus V3 and the silver lining there, and that's interesting for both these major releases. Surprise, surprise, is OpenTelemetry. Both of these, like front and center, is OpenTelemetry. For Jaeger, like they re-architected the controller, they dumped the Jaeger agent and re-implemented it based on OpenTelemetry collector, and obviously they already support the OTLP protocol and all that. For Prometheus, they went as far as saying that Prometheus strives to be the de facto backend storage for OpenTelemetry metrics. Imagine that. So really, it's impressive. Sorry, Victor, you wanted to say?
No, I was about to ask. Wasn't sure whether, but you just answered it, right? Is Prometheus going towards OpenTelemetry becoming the default or de facto in Prometheus, or?
So they haven't dumped the capability to do metric scraping. Okay, it's there, and but there's been a lot of effort in, first of all, aligning the conventions. So are you a dot or underscore or all these? Are the units part of the metric name, or is it a label? These biblical dogmatic discussions about how to do that and how to bridge these conventions, but ultimately because we need a way to be able to move from Prometheus to OTLP or to the data model based off of OpenTelemetry, and there's a lot of work obviously on the receiver on OpenOTL collector that can scrape, do similar functionality. So I would say it's not. I think if you're metrics only, the common practice, you won't hear the Prometheus folks saying no, switch over to OTL. I think the interesting case would be if you collect several types of telemetry types. Then I think it will converge ultimately to yes, OTL across the board, including the native Prometheus metrics. But it's interesting. It's interesting also in terms of dumping, like it's simplified, drastically simplified. Even the binaries that you ship Jaeger with, suddenly it's like a single simplified binary. You don't need to maintain your own way of getting traces from Kafka and from whatnot. You just reuse the thing that is already there for OTL collector receiver for Kafka. I think the reuse here and the cross collaboration between the CNCF projects here is really, really shines. Okay, yeah, Max, go ahead. We're about to get into the top of the hour, but tell us your bit on the observability stack.
I just want to say I cannot add too much to it. Observability is not my biggest stake.
No, fair enough. It's I think actually we covered quite a lot on this chat. Final note from you, Victor. Anything that you wanted to mention?
No, I think we covered most. I was now, while you were talking, trying to think whether we missed something, but yeah, I think we covered it most.
Fair enough. So I guess with that, we'll wrap up this very special KubeCon recap. Thanks a lot, Victor. Thanks a lot, Max, for joining us. And for the folks at home, do follow them on X, Blue Sky, Mastodon. They're everywhere, and they have very good thoughts and very successful podcast and that they mentioned and everything. And you can also follow, by the way, the CNCF Ambassadors handle on X or Twitter. And there's now also a new list on Blue Sky. So if you're there, check it out, and you'll get more of not just us, but the broader team that is like a couple of hundred folks there. So, and with that, thanks again for joining us on this live stream. And until the next KubeCon or recap. Bye, folks.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.